What up, world? This is Cannon, aka the Tax D Hero, and you are now listening to Investors Conversation. Boom!
Hi, and I'm Mika Coleman. I'm with Leverage, and I teach tax deeds and overage education. And today we're going to talk about our first experience with tax deeds.
Let's
So,
go.
Shannon, I will let you talk about what you just said. And I was like, oh, I gotta get this. So, tell me, what was your first experience?
My first experience is I just wanted to win a tax deed sale. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it first and foremost. And that was, um, I bought some land on my first tax deed sale. I bought land, right? And then once I did that, I just realized I'm like, man, I want to keep going, but I want to be a landlord, and before I knew it, I had bought a property. It had a structure on it, did a little work. And then all I realized, I was like, man, I want to put my first tenant in here. Got my first tenant in here. I put together a strategy. I have an uncle that's a lender. Um, and so what he did, he allowed me to you know, set up a process where I could screen my tenants, and they gave me their information. I would send him the information. They'd run a credit report for me. He'd run a credit report for me, and that'd give me a good strategy on who would be a good fit for my properties. And once I got that, hey, I mean, I felt like I was doing something then. Not only did I have some land, I had a house, I had a strategy on how to vet my tenants, and I was a landlord, and I was proud.
Oh, that's good. So were you like nervous when you did your
I was never nervous. I actually, believe it or not, and this may sound cliche, I always knew I was going to do real estate, even when I was a little boy.
really? Wait, so how old were you when you bought your first tax deed?
Mm, 21, 22, something like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
mine wasn't as pleasant.
It wasn't. I think
No,
you told me about that. I think you told me you had a hard time on the first one or something like. It was a
yeah, mine,
quadruplex.
no. So my first experience of my tax deed is I won, like you said, when your first experience, you just want to win, right?
Right, right.
So I won, and this particular county allows you to go get the money within an hour. Some counties don't allow you to do that. Like you got to have the money right then and there. So it just really depends. Some counties let you buy on credit cards. It just really depends on the county. But this
Sure.
particular county was like, after you bid and after the auction, you have an hour to get the money to them. And
Mm,
so I had researched all that already, and I had found a bank that was close that I could actually go and get the money instead of carrying $10 or $20,000. I didn't want to carry all that money. And because they gave me an hour, I was like, I mapped out the bank and everything. And come to find out, I go to the bank, which is a sister, because I actually, most of the bank that I keep all my money, go figure, was in California, but they had a sister bank.
mm,
But what I didn't find out was that the sister bank would only allow me to take $5,000 a day.
mm. Yeah, it was it's a limit.
It's a limit.
Yeah.
So I was like frantic, right? And so I was like, well, can you guys override it? I have the money. And by the way, the first one was, I think it was like 17,000 or something like that, or 15,000. And they were like, no. And they said,
Mm,
matter of fact, you only could get 3,000. I said, but you guys could see my account. I have more than enough money. Make a long story short, my bank thought that it was a scam, so they wouldn't release the money. So
mm.
then I had to go down to the county and tell them, I'm like, look, I have the money. And they were like, if you don't get us this money today, we're going to sanction and have you arrested.
Mm,
So
mm.
at that point, I was like sweating bullets. So that's another thing too, guys. Make sure you have the money. Make sure you know. I mean, I've been through so many experiences. That's why I'm so confident to like teach and coach people. And like you said, experience is the best teacher, right?
Right, for
So
sure.
like I've had so many experiences. That's why I have a list of questions for my students to ask, because I've experienced so much.
Yeah.
So anyway, needless to say, I did find out that I had an extra day. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just take out 5,000, and then I'll take out another 5,000, and then another 5,000. And then come to find out, they just thought it was fraud because, of course, I had never pulled any money from another state. I always used my bank.
Right.
So needless to say, I drove up to where the constable was, and I showed them my bank statements and be like, "Hey, I have this money, but there's no bank in Texas that is going to give me all the money." So unfortunately, I didn't get the property
Mm,
because they were like, "If you don't have it by the end of the next business day, we're gonna forfeit." So
yeah.
I got banned for that auction for like 2 years.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but like you said, it's a learning experience. And you mentioned something earlier that I think a lot of people need to pay attention to. Whenever you're getting ready and preparing for these tax deed sales, find out what is the procedures, because you, again, like you said, some people will take, you could pay for a tax deed. I don't think a lot of people know this. You could pay for a tax deed off a credit card. Some places allow it.
Yeah, like that's what I found out. So I
Yeah.
guess the blessing in all that is because I got banned from that county. It
You learn
forced
that.
well, not only I learned it, but it forced me to go to other counties.
Right.
And so I went to a whole nother county in Texas that I didn't even think about. And it was like literally no structure. Like you didn't have to register, you didn't have to get a permit.
Yeah.
And then you just go sign your name and they give you a number. And they were like, and you could pay by any forms necessary. There was like cashier's check, credit cards, cash, whatever you have to pay for it, that's what we'll take. And so I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
So I guess it was a blessing in disguise because it made me go to a whole nother county to start investing.
The last time we talked, I would say about a year, when we did a interview together about a year ago. What have you seen since then? Have you seen a change in how tax deed sales are conducted? Have you seen less courthouse sales and more online sales, or what have you noticed? I remember mentioning that to you.
Yeah, you did mention that to me. And honestly, a lot of counties, and I was kind of shocked
Hmm.
that, because I feel like Texas is still kind of like antiquated.
Right.
And I was really shocked that Dallas County went online, but there are still a lot of counties that still do in person.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like a lot of the counties are going online. And honestly, I kind of like Dallas because there's this timed. So
Hmm.
like if you ain't quick on the draw, you could lose. And
You can. Yeah.
I kind of like that because it's like you got to just be quick, and then it kind of beats out your competition if they're not as quick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I know in Texas you got during their tax sale going on in every county, right?
Yeah, that's the only downfall about Texas is that most of all the tax deed sales happen every first Tuesday. So I always say, if you're in Texas, you literally only could cover 12 counties, but a lot of the counties, some of the counties don't even have a lot of tax deeds, so they might have them quarterly, but the bigger major cities, they do have them every first Tuesday. I mean, yeah, the first Tuesday of every month.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Well,
So does Tennessee, is it is it quarterly?
no, it's literally you got to just keep your eyes and ears open. But I would say normally it's maybe once or twice a year.
Oh,
On an average.
okay.
So whenever they do have it, it is pretty much a big deal for investors like ourselves that are looking forward and anticipating. So I always tell people, when you're looking to get into this game, make sure you bring your chips because people been stacking up and anticipating themselves.
Yeah, well, I have to say I did Oklahoma last year,
Hmm.
and one of my strategies, of course, all the good ones are gonna go.
Yeah.
And so actually one of the things I did learn, and that was like, well, Houston was the biggest tax deed sale I've ever been to,
Right.
auction. But then I went to Oklahoma, and that was just as big, but it still wasn't as huge as Houston's. And the first day, by the last day, like stuff was going for like $1,400 because all the big guys with all the big pockets, they blew through their money the first day.
Right. Right.
So the
Right.
second and third day was like the best day. That's I was able to get five properties for 10,000. I paid like 24 to a little bit, $2,000 for each one.
Is this
Uh,
land or structures?
Two of them with structures that need to be just torn down, and then the
Okay.
rest were land. Yes.
Okay. I was gonna mention to you, Before we get off of here, what about cities and states, right? So I tell a lot of students, I tell people that just ask and inquire and want to know like how we do this. And it's always due diligence, but if you for those that may go and search tax deed states, right? Well, I
Mhm.
always say there's a clause to that because it's going to show you the obvious, but then there are cities and states where they're not tax deed states, but the city governs the sales, tax deed sales, and
Mm.
not, you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
sometimes, like if you use an example, like let's say Missouri, I know for a fact Missouri is a state where they're not really a tax deed state, but if you go to St. Louis, the city of St. Louis will sell you a tax deed.
Yeah, well, there are some hybrid states.
Yeah, like Florida. Florida's the same way.
Yes,
You know.
Florida's a hybrid state.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there are some states that they do liens and deeds, and then liens do convert to tax
Hmm.
deeds if they're not redeemed. So
Right. Right.
yeah. Yeah, Missouri has some really good, cheap, nice properties. Like Missouri is definitely a state where you can just definitely get properties in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
St. Louis, Missouri is the same, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But other than
So
that,
I guess that was our first. We basically told our story of our first tax deed experience. So for all the newbies or the novice investors that are
hmm
just finding out about tax deeds,
hmm
you've heard our story. So don't be afraid because I almost got arrested. So, but I'm still here and I avidly invest. I like go to auctions. I do online. I do
that's what make it fun, though. Now you got a story, you know.
yeah, yeah. And I learned so much from that experience, you know. So yeah. And I think that experience actually gave me even more confidence to teach
Hmm.
because I was able to like experience so much and every different county that I've invested in has taught me something new.
For sure.
So that's why I have a list of questions to ask because it's really important to know the details.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely agree with you.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have anything else to say, I guess that concludes investor conversations.
Y'all make sure y'all comment, like, subscribe, and any questions y'all have, please don't hesitate.
Yes, please don't forget to like or subscribe.
Peace.